I got a question for you. What have we learned about this LSU football team through 7 weeks now? Because to me, it feels like we haven't learned anything. Like this team is just as unknown, honestly, as they were day one. It just feels like every week they surprise you with something new. But what if I told you that they were making a road trip to Nashville, Tennessee this weekend? And not only are they making a road trip, not for the Music City Bowl, Will, but they are road underdogs heading to Vanderbilt. And I looked it up earlier today, Will. This is the first time in the history of Vanderbilt's football program that they will be facing a top 10 team and be favored.
Wow. That's impressive. And I think it's for good reason. This Vanderbilt football team is good. I know the score looked bad for the Alabama game, but that was a really close game throughout all four quarters. They hung with them at Bryant Denny, and we've seen Vanderbilt get some big wins. I mean, you remember what they did against Alabama last year with Diego Pavia. He's back. I can see it. I can see why Vanderbilt's favored over LSU in this game, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean we have two top 20 football teams, and people have got to get that Vanderbilt narrative out of their mind when they go and look at this football team because honestly, Will, I think they're favored in this football game not just for home field or any of that stuff. It's just because they are a really good football team. And I don't think we can speak in terms of the past now when we talk about Vanderbilt and coming into these football games because I think they have just broken all of those narratives. This Vanderbilt football team is a complete football team. You go look at their numbers. They're not going to wow you, but they are good at everything. There is not really a deficient part of this team. And Clark Lee and Diego Pavia have bought into this culture at Vanderbilt where they're not scared to go face the big dogs anymore. And as an LSU fan, what scares me the most is that never have factor where this is one of the teams probably on the hit list for Vanderbilt. I'm not going to lie. It's a team that they haven't beaten in a while, which is a lot of the SEC teams. But, they checked South Carolina off the list this year. They checked
I
Alabama
saw
off the
that
list
also.
last year. Is LSU next on the hit list for them, Will? I don't know, man. This one scares me. This one really scares me, especially with all the unknowns coming out of Baton Rouge right now.
Yeah, I can see why it scares you. LSU, it felt like their offense was taking a step in the right direction against South Carolina last weekend, but we talked about it in our recap of the game. They left a lot on the table there, and it's like, can they get some of this stuff cleaned up? I think you really have to. Going into Nashville to take on the Commodores in this game, it's not going to be easy, and not going to lie, I'm liking Vanderbilt in this situation.
Yeah, it
Vanderbilt
feels
also coming off a bye week. Think about that too. So
Yeah, not an ideal spot, obviously for LSU schedule wise, right? Coming off of a game against South Carolina, where maybe even in the preseason you thought that was going to be a highly anticipated game, and then you just had this Vanderbilt game kind of sandwiched in there. But a lot of people in Baton Rouge might be looking forward to later in this month when A&M, a top five team, is most likely coming to town. We kind of
I'll do
talked
that.
about it. Game day could be there, but boy, Vanderbilt's got other ideas. Well, and so if you're LSU, you really have to remain locked in and you have to figure this team out. You've got to establish yourselves. One thing that I will always credit Vanderbilt for, especially now, they have an identity. They know exactly what they are going to do week in and week out and what they're trying to do. Whether it works or not is to be determined. But with this LSU team, I think the most frustrating part talking with them is we just never know what we're going to expect. We've seen games like the Florida and South Carolina game very similar in stature, where they relied on the defense a lot, they turned the ball over a lot, but they just could never pull away from those teams, even though those teams gave them so many opportunities. And then obviously the road game that they lost at Ole Miss was kind of a little bit of the same thing. My biggest concern with LSU right now is the quarterback play, Will, and they've played three SEC games to this point, and Garrett Nussmeier has turned the ball over in every single one of those football games. And we have talked about it, I mean, till we're blue in the face. Garrett Nussmeier is a gunslinger, right? He is not a guy who's going to go out there and Greg McElroy this thing and manage the game and throw for 180 yards 1 touchdown, 0 turnovers. That is not him. He's a guy, especially with LSU struggles running the football, who is going to put the ball in harm's way. And I think the key on Saturday is, can you stay under 2 turnovers? If you're Garrett Nussmeier in this LSU team, you have to stay in that below 2 turnovers, because if Vanderbilt gets +2 in the turnover ratio and you give them those extra possessions, we watched what they did against South Carolina, Will, and where they just ate up that clock and they just kept the ball. It felt like the entirety of the game. If you give them the opportunity, obviously a little bit tougher test for Vanderbilt with LSU's defense and how they've been playing, but it is really strength on strength. I look at Vanderbilt with a top 25 offense and LSU with a top 25 defense coming into this football game. So it is really going to be strength versus strength. And now I'm a big believer that defense wins you championships, but my goodness, Will, when I watch LSU's offense, I also think that that offense could lose you championships. So it's a really tough one for me to pick right now. But man, what do you think? What does this look like if Vanderbilt goes in there and gets it done? Obviously, they're favored, but if Vanderbilt goes in there and wins this football game, you got to think of this thing being really low scoring, really ugly possession style game where they just control the totality of how the game is played.
Yeah, I could see that. And I'm thinking, yeah, Vandy, I'm taking them to win outright and cover the 2.5. That's nothing to cover, right? But I think it'll be low scoring, maybe 20-17 kind of game. Vanderbilt just really controlling the clock and thinking LSU not going to get much going offensively. Again, they did take a step in the right direction against South Carolina, but can you finish the deal? You can't turn the ball over like we saw them do inside the 10-yard line against South Carolina. Vanderbilt, I think they're going to force some turnovers. I think they're going to control the clock, and I like them to win.
Yeah, one thing I thought was interesting in watching actually Clark Lee's press conference today is he made a note about winning once you get outside of the 20s, Will, and we talked about this after the South Carolina game and LSU struggles of turning the ball over, but that has been a consistent thing since Garrett Nussmeier has kind of taken over this offense. Is LSU's offense has not been able to score touchdowns when they get inside of the red zone, whether it's not being able to run the ball. And obviously, that puts a lot of pressure on Garrett Nussmeier to throw into a lot tighter windows when you condense the field like that. But hearing Clark Lee talk about it and how he said, hey, we're going to give up some yards. Like this offense is really good. They have talented players all over. Can we not give up the big play, and can we keep them in that red zone area where we've seen LSU's offense struggle tremendously? So I think it's going to be one of those types of games where we saw LSU's offense take steps forward, right? Well, I mean, we can both agree that the offense probably looked better than they have in the entirety of the season on Saturday against South Carolina. But can you finish drives? That is what it comes down to. And when you play these tough SEC games, you have to be able to finish drives with not field goals but touchdowns. There's no excuse for getting inside of the 5-yard line and coming away with 3 points in a football game. And if South Carolina had any pulse offensively, they could have done something with it, but they weren't able to. A team like Vanderbilt is going to absolutely take advantage of something like that. So that's probably what scares me the most. Now, when I think about this game, Will, I think more of LSU has figured some things out. Clearly, offensively, I think the offensive line is playing a little bit better. They're still pretty bad, all right, but they figured some things out. And if LSU's recipe for success on Saturday results with them in a win, it's going to come down to the right arm of Garrett Nussmeier. And I really believe that if Vanderbilt is +2 and turnovers are higher, Vanderbilt will win this football game on Saturday. But if Garrett Nussmeier and the offense can limit turnovers and make the most out of the very few possessions they're probably going to get, we've seen this LSU defense dominate in conference play. All right. And you like to joke about how you got to get to that 20 number, right? LSU's yet to score over 20 points in a conference game. But on the flip side of that, they've only given up more than that one time, Will. So, I mean, what does Vanderbilt's offense have for LSU's defense? I don't know. They're going to run a lot of misdirections, and they are good at what they do. But I'm also intrigued with all the motions and stuff that they do on offense. I'm intrigued to see this linebacker versus Diego Pavia matchup. That is Blake Baker and LSU's defense specialty is that linebacker position, and it's going to take a lot of eye discipline from the LSU defense this weekend with all the jet sweeps and all that kind of stuff. But this is going to be an awesome game. I think LSU is going to come back and win this game. I think this could be one of those where maybe they get off to a sloppy start here, 11 a.m. kickoff in Nashville. It's probably going to be like 50-50 crowd like it always is. This is a big trip that LSU fans like to make. You know, Nashville is a drinking town. So probably not ideal for it being an 11 a.m. kickoff, but I think LSU will be ready. But I do worry with Vanderbilt coming off a bye and being that quality team that we talked about, that this is definitely a major trap spot for LSU.
This like is the definition of trap game, right? I mean, you got that number 4 now, Texas A&M coming into your building the next week. Just don't be caught looking ahead.